Hi class, my name is Caitlin Wilson and this is my book review on The Killing Zone by Frederick Downs. The setting of this book is actually in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and the main character is actually the author of the book, Lieutenant Frederick Downs. He got the idea of this book from an experience that he had at the University of Denver. He was walking along the streets when someone noticed that he had a prosthetic arm on. And he was then asked if he got that prosthetic arm in Vietnam. And when he replied yes, this person goes, "Well, serves you right," and walks away. Well, this kind of left him feeling confused, angry, because he's served in the army for us and gets this kind of reaction. So this experience kind of stuck with him over about 10 years. And that's when he decided that he needed to write a book to kind of let the general population know exactly what the day-to-day life of a soldier was like back then. So this is where the book all kind of takes place. It starts on September 8th in 1967, and this is when Lieutenant Downs actually first goes to Vietnam. He goes to South Vietnam in the Central Highlands, and his base is on Montezuma Mountain. One of the main things he's surprised about when he gets there is how much it actually doesn't look like a war zone. You can feel and sense the danger there, but it doesn't actually look like a war is being fought where he lands. Him and his platoon jobs there were to kind of patrol and reopen bridge along the coastal highway on Highway 1. During this time at war, he kind of had a lot of firsts. One of his first things was he did his first search and destroy mission. So this is where him and his platoon went into a village, searched the village, and then destroyed it. This is kind of where he first saw how harsh and brutal war actually is. This is where they didn't actually kill older men, women, or children, but they destroyed everything that they had. This was also a place where he had his first battle, and 2 Vietnam men, which they called Viet Congs, were killed. This is also where he has to threaten his first soldier to fight. And that's kind of a weird feeling. You know, this guy, they're all scared. They don't want to fight. And this is where he actually has to threaten a soldier, threaten to kill him just to get him to keep going. This was also a time that was kind of confusing to the guys because due to the language barrier, it was hard to figure out who was actually an enemy or who was a friend. They experienced this at one point where they stopped 2 men, and they were in the mindset that if you find men, you assume they're Viet Cong and you kill them. Well, it turns out these 2 guys weren't. So this led to even more confusion just due to the language barrier and just trying to figure out, who's actually with them or who's against them. One of the things that was uncomfortable but actually helped them throughout the war was when Lieutenant Downs had to kill a dog that was interrupting their troops. Well, women in a village saw this dog and asked Lieutenant Downs if they could keep it. Well, he told them yes, and then later that night he was invited to the village to have dinner. And during dinner, they're served this cooked dog and they talk to him and they're all very friendly. And this even confuses them more because it's so hard to tell who is actually against them, who is for them. Shortly after this, his platoons moved into the jungle. Now, this is where a lot of the real fighting actually happens in the book. This is where their goal is to go out into the jungle. They separate the troops out in certain distances, and their job is to go out into the jungle, figure out where the Viet Cong are hiding, ambush and kill them. This is where they see their first bombing. This is where helicopter guns come in. This is where aircraft bombers come in. And there was actually at one point where they were going to ambush a village. Well, off in the distance, they see U.S. start bombing a village. Then soldiers are trying to escape the village and they're being killed. If they're on boat, they're being killed by helicopter. If not, they're being killed by soldiers. And this is also where he experiences the first Vietnam soldier that has turned against Vietnam. They have a hard time trusting him. One, because he used to be for Vietnam. Now he's saying that he's against them. But he actually gets to experience what it was like for this ex-Vietnam soldier to trap the current Vietnam soldiers and kill them. This still led to distrust, and they never really trusted people who were at once for Vietnam and turned towards the U.S. After they did their sent in the jungle that actually get sent back to the bridges where they originally started. He's kind of more used to things by now. The bridges are actually a lot more calmer than the jungle, so they do feel a little bit more at ease, but they don't forget that they're truly at war. During this time, he discovers that the Vietnamese are using the lake to get supplies and fish. So he ends up leading bombers and stuff over there, and they end up killing about 18 men. He's super praised for this, so he finally gets a break from war. They fly him to a camp. He gets to drink, have fun, let loose for the first time at war, and just get a little bit of peace. After that, he goes back out, and this is the end part of the book. This is where the most brutal part of war for him occurs. So one morning while they are doing the bridges, he just goes out for normal patrol, just going out for patrol. And during this time, he steps on what's called a bouncing Betty. A bouncing Betty is a mine that's spring-loaded. So when you step on it, it pops up in the air and explodes. Well, when this exploded, it actually blew off part of his left arm. He ended up having to have his left arm amputated above the elbow. So then it goes into the book kind of how he copes after war. So eventually he does come home, he does recover, and he does have his life. So that is one good thing. But he does eventually become an official for the Veterans Administration for the U.S. And then later he does become the National Director of the Prosthetic and Sensory Aid Service. This allowed him to help soldiers just like him, soldiers that need prosthetic arms, that need prosthetic legs. Eventually, over time, he does have anger, but after a little while, he does go back to where he fought these battles in Vietnam. He does visit with these people, and that's when he does realize, you know what, these are people too, and understands, you know, how war happens and everything that went on. And this is where he can finally kind of find peace. So, in the end, it was a great experience to actually read what he went through as a soldier in the day-to-day process. I don't think we see that enough actually from their point of view of how they felt and how other soldiers felt and how they're scared they're not going to get to go home and see their families. And then in the meantime, the media is just portraying, you know, all of this killing. We do forget that these soldiers are actual human beings. So the book was great, and I do highly recommend it. Thanks, guys.